Hey, y'all. Okay, so the theme of today is reinventing. I want to talk about inventing for 1 minute, because every writer invents himself or herself. I went to college to learn how to be a writer. And college, actually, I didn't go to college to learn how to be a writer. I went to college to learn how to write. And college is very good at that. They're very good at teaching you the nuts and bolts of language and how to put sentences together and that sort of thing. And college is the ultimate luxurious environment for a writer because you have a captive audience. You have your classmates are paying to read your writing, and your professor gets paid to read your writing. And then this thing happens where you get out of college, and it wasn't until the fourth year of college in my last semester as a senior that was the first time anyone talked to me about what being a writer out in the world was really like. And so they kind of gave me this, I had a good course called the Publishing Marketplace. And what they taught us about was something kind of like this flow chart that you see up here. What you did is you wrote something and you submitted it to literary journals, and they either said yes or no and published you. And then you would write something else and send it to literary journals, and they would either like it or they wouldn't and publish it. And it went like that. And eventually, something would happen where either an agent would see your work in a literary journal, or you would have enough work that you thought you could query an agent. And the agent would either like your work or he wouldn't. And this would keep going on at every level. Literary journal, agent, publisher, book. And then at the very end of the process, you would have a reader who would read the book. This is as far in the process as I got when I got out of college. I would send out my work to literary journals, and I would get resounding no's, as many young writers do. And I started thinking about this system, and it looked to me like I was asking permission to write, or I was looking for some kind of acceptance from all these middlemen to get the ultimate goal of the reader. And I thought, okay, so there's me. What do I want? I want readers. I want kind of what I had in college. I want people to read my work and think about it, and I want that connection again. So I thought there must be something, some way to link directly to those readers and kind of bypass this whole system. And luckily, I was alive at the certain time I'm alive, as we all are, and that solution to me was to start a blog. And so I started a blog. But in the meantime, I thought I hit a really nasty case of what they call a writer's block, and I wasn't really sure what to put on this blog anymore. And this is where this comes in. One day I was staring at my Microsoft Word screen, and the little cursor was just blinking at me like it was taunting me. And I looked over at a stack of newspapers in the recycle bin, and I thought, I don't have any words, but right there in front of me are millions of them, and they're right for the taking. So what I did was I made my way through the paper, and I circled the words that appealed to me. And eventually I linked something into a coherent, kind of string of words. And what I came up with looked like this. The words kind of floating in this sea of black. And what it looks like is like this. And I showed it to my wife, and I said, I don't know what I'm doing here. What do you think this is? And she said, well, you idiot, you're writing poetry. I said, I am? And she said, yeah. So I started posting these poems to my blog. And slowly, and that's my blog right there. And slowly over time, much to my surprise, people started reading them. And I started hearing back from people. And all of a sudden, I had this connection with readers that I had longed for so long. And then what happened that was really great was that those readers sent the work to their friends. And slowly this thing started to build, and people started coming to the site, and more readers kind of came and found their way there. And the great thing about it was I heard from people, oh, you should check out this poet, or oh, this technique reminds me of this. And slowly the readership started influencing my own work, and this great cycle was in motion. And then, so I had this nice little loop going where I had a direct connection to my readers, and they had a direct connection to me through the blog or through Twitter or whatever. And then this thing happened where one day I got an email from an editor at HarperCollins, and she said, have you ever thought of a book? And I said, hell yes, I've thought of a book. And this is what I think it should be. And so 2 months later, we had a book deal, and I had 6 months to make this book of poems. And they were supposed to be all original poems that weren't featured on the blog. And so I spent my commute to work, because I have a day job in a cubicle. I spent my commute to and from work making the poems, and then an hour on my lunch break making these poems that would make up the book. And this weird thing happened where I couldn't post the poems to my blog anymore, and all of a sudden I was cut off from my readers. And I felt really weird about that. So without the connection to my readers, I had to rely on my ultimate reader, who was my wife. And she helped me. We printed all the poems out on quarter sheets of paper in the end, and we spread them all over the house, and we started sorting through them, trying to find a narrative in all these poems that would make up a decent book. In the meantime, because I felt really detached from my readership, we decided to run a contest to invite other readers to try out the method. And so what we ended up doing in the book was we published poems that the readers had made. So I got that connection back to the readers that way. So what happened was I had achieved this kind of weird pinnacle that everyone says when you're in college, like, oh, if I could be a published author one day and have this book, I thought that all my problems would be solved, But the weird thing, as someone who kind of cut his teeth as at being online, having a book out in the world was really weird, because there aren't any comment feeds on books, There aren't any @replies on books. And I felt like, so this book was out here in the world, and I didn't know what people were doing with it. So what I decided was, I'm going to start a website that's purely dedicated to people sharing their own poems. The method that I had outlined in my book, I wanted them to share what they had done with the method. And this poem up on the screen is a wacky, wild type of version of what I'm doing by a reader in New Jersey. And what I have on the site is just a really simple form where people can take a picture with their iPhone or scan it on their computer and upload it to the website and put a little bit of biographical information next to it. And the deal has been to just invite everyone to come in and make their own poems and see what we can find together. So this new thing has been set up where it's not just writer and reader, it's writer and writer. My readers have become writers, and the ways that they innovate and kind of reinvent my own method, it comes back to me, and I get to use their innovations in my own work. So in the end, there's kind of this thing that's been around forever. Someone writes something good, and someone reads it. And what's happening now is the reinvention is happening in the middle. Thanks.